America Fest live from Phoenix, Arizona in the Convention Center. I'm your host, Mike Church, here for the Crusade Radio Network, Live Talk, and Convention Radio and TV the way it should be here. Joined now by Johnathan Gilliam. Check the book out. That is Sheep No More here. Funny story, Johnathan used to fill in for me in the last year that I was on Sirius XM satellite radio, and I didn't even know it. And I'm going to tell you why. It's not a knock on you.
Right.
I got so tired of people complaining to me about Steve filling in and other neocons that they would fill in for me. Right. Steve's not a neocon anymore, right? But at the time, he kind of was with the Breitbart News thing. And I got so tired of getting complaints about it that I would just send everything to spam. Anything that had anything to do with the fill-in host on the show, I just ignored it.
Well, just call me Spam then. Man, it was a good show, and like I was telling you earlier, it was that was when I first started hosting, and it was terrifying because it was a commercial break at the bottom, commercial break at the top, and that was a 6 a.m. show, right?
6 a.m.
6 a.m. show, and in New York, 6 a.m. in New York, you've got to you have to get up early to get down. I lived on the Upper West Side, so it was a baptism by fire.
5 a.m. in New York.
Yeah, so I had to be down there early, but I learned so much about radio from doing that show that I didn't have to stack the ranks with every 15 minutes have a different guest. I learned how to talk for long periods of time because of that show. So
the first gig that I had in 1992 at WSLA in Slidell, Louisiana, outside of New Orleans, I did 2 hours. I didn't have a guest for the first 3 months. I didn't have a caller for a month.
Wow.
And I had break top of the hour, bottom of the hour. So I learned to talk to a wall.
Yeah.
And I used to say that I've learned to talk to a wall. Hang on just a second here.
I think it's interesting because a lot of people, they think that just because they're in the know that they'd be able to do radio, like host it, or TV is like, for me, like I love being an analyst on television, but I've hosted before on Newsmax and they have a teleprompter up there. I hate that. I'm not a teleprompter guy. And live reads on the radio were the worst because it's serious. They print them so small.
Yes. And then they say, you can say this in 60 seconds. I'm like, no, you can't.
Well, Hannity taught me that. He makes up a whole story and just throws in a couple things and throws a piece of paper away. So that kind of works.
Yeah, I didn't use the copy either. The only thing I used the copy for was what they call the CTA, the call to action at the bottom.
Right.
You need to go to 1-800-proflowers.com and use the coupon code CHURCH at checkout. Right. Well, you do learn radio by doing it. You learn anything by doing it, right? You get better at it. And the problem today is these young guys that are out there that are podcasting, they don't know what live broadcasting is.
Right.
You touched it, Johnathan.
Yeah.
You touched it when you said, I was terrified. It's nerves, because like right now, we're live streaming on YouTube. Don't mess up, right? Okay, don't mess up.
Doesn't bother me anymore, though.
Doesn't bother me either. Obviously, I've been doing it for a long time, but we don't get take two.
Right.
When you're doing it live, you get take one.
Yeah.
Now, you can go like, for our English-speaking friends, let me say that again another way.
Right.
You can kind of get a take two.
Yeah.
But you got to, when you're under pressure to do it live and to get it right the first time out, there's nothing like it. And it changes the appearance and the delivery of what it is that you're going to say.
Yeah. And I also found that, the more I did radio, now I'm coughing, the more I did radio, the better my TV got, and the better my speaking engagements became. And what was interesting is on radio is how, and I know you've had this, I've been at NRA convention or SHOT Show and had people walk by me and like, are you Johnathan Gilliam? I listen to you on the radio all the time. I'm like, you recognize my voice? No, they're doing the national anthem now as we, this is a moment right here.
Yeah, we'll stop. Was that Lee Greenwood?
I don't know who that was.
Was that Lee? Sounded like him.
See, that's a radio moment right there. We're on YouTube, but on the radio, people would be like, "What the heck's going on? How come we can't hear anything?"
Yeah, where did you guys go? Why did you go silent?
Right, but you can't stress over those things. You just got to roll with it. Like you're saying in podcasts, and I had a podcast for a long time. You can cut and you can do all that stuff, but the problem with podcasts is it's so saturated now.
Oh.
And I was doing a podcast, video cast long before other people were doing it, but now it's so saturated. It's just a popularity contest. It's not about the reason I got into media after the FBI was that I wanted to. I felt like I was called by the Lord to make sure people knew the truth about things, and that's how it kind of progressed from there. And I don't think that that's the case with most podcasts. It's not even let's give them the opinion. Now it's whatever the opinion is of people. Let's just feed them what they want.
I'm going to give you a book recommendation. First of all, if you're going to read one book this year, read this one. If you're going to read two, then see how I did that? So if you're going to read two books this year, get the book Snow Leopard.
Snow Leopard, okay.
I want you to read Snow Leopard. You only have to read the first 5 chapters.
Okay.
And what Snow Leopard is going to teach you is, and it's going to make you feel really good about what you just said.
Yeah.
Excuse me. 2 kinds of people. Curators and category kings.
Right.
You want to be a category king. You want to change the world. You want to make a better place.
Right.
That's why you wrote a book.
Right.
That's why you got into radio. You don't care about clicks and likes.
Right.
You care about changing people's lives for the better. Right.
Yep. Yes,
okay.
right.
This is the moment that we're in, Jonathan. The podcaster and the click guy out there only cares about what he can sell today. He wants your click. He wants the revenue
That's
from
right.
Elon. That's all he cares about. He wants to run around and go, I got 700,000 followers on Twitter. Well, yeah, well, did you convert anyone to the faith today?
Right.
I did.
Right.
I'm not saying that I did, but
Yeah.
I worked on it. Did you bring anyone to the faith? Did you change someone's life? Did you make them say to themselves and look in the mirror like, I'm not a good husband.
Right.
I'm a bad. I think Mike's right. I'm not a good husband. You might say, you know what? You're in the military. You may say, I think Jonathan's right, and I think I'm a bad soldier. I think I got into this for the wrong reason. I had the wrong attitude about it. That's what we want to do. We're here to change people's lives, to make them better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think it's funny that you pointed that out because that is actually the case with many, many preachers now. It's the same thing as they get into theology school and they're just not religious.
Well,
they want to be popular.
Popular and not holy.
They're activists a
Right.
lot of the times. And so what ends up happening is their congregation becomes like their cult, and they never witness to outside people. There's no people coming to their church, and those churches will last a long time because they convince the people that go there to fund the church. And then you have preachers that, they're nowhere around during certain holidays, or there's issues in the church now that are it's bad. It's bad what's going on, but it's really going on everywhere. It's going on everywhere, and I think whether people are listening to a preacher, a person on radio, television, especially television, radio, when I see somebody analyzing something, I always see if I can find their bio, and I look up their bio, and more often than not, they have no experience in what they're talking
whatsoever.
about. None. And I'm very adamant about that. I mean, if you're going to analyze something, you need some experience and some understanding if that's your job. Now, if you're hosting a radio show, it's kind of the opposite. You have to understand everything so that you can introduce people to that and then bring in people who are experts in that field. And I don't see either one of those things now.
I'm with the El Rushbo school. Entertain. But he also had a passion for America, and a passion for conservatism and American history, and he got that from his dad.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I pick up, just to your point about the experts here, Rush used to say, "My friends, we don't have guests on this show because I am the expert," and I think that that's actually a very good the best ever selling point because, I don't have to book anybody today because I know the subject. I'm only going to talk about subjects that I know.
Right.
And if I make a mistake, you can call Mike Church on it.
Right.
Here's my name. Here's where you can find me. You can call Johnathan Gilliam on it. He's an author. You can, and by the way, authority.
Right.
You're an authority on this subject.
Rush Limbaugh was an authority on the things that he talked about. Rush Limbaugh changed the Republican Party.
He did.
And Rush Limbaugh's voice was a voice that led people and they followed. And I think Rush was a moralistic person. I think you're a moralistic person. And I think when you're listening to people analyze what's going on and they have that moral foundation, that is an expertise. And then when you look at the people who don't have the moral foundation and they're analyzing stuff, you a lot of times you have to call BS on it because you're like, who is this guy? What do they do in their off time? Because if it feels like somebody is spoon feeding you what you want to hear,
they probably are.
They probably are, and that's exactly what it is. And so, I've gotten used to people disagreeing with me, but what I'm not used to is people, and I never will, is people being disrespectful in their disagreement. If you disagree with what I say, maybe you have a different moralistic standpoint that you come from, but that was actually the thing about radio that I loved, is when people would call in and they tried to tell me how it was, I would have a debate, but when they tried to talk over me because I didn't agree with them, I had fun with that. That was a blast.
So you take the call not knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
That's the other thing about live, that you cannot do that in a recording studio where you're recording a podcast. You just can't.
Yeah.
Even if you have a guest and you don't know what they're going to say, it's not the same as a caller that you didn't set up.
Right.
You didn't arrange it.
Right.
And think, George in Alabama is on the line. Next up on the Mike Church Show, Johnathan Gilliam filling in for Mike Church on the Sirius XM Patriot Channel. Hello, George. Let me tell you something, Gilliam.
Exactly. It's funny.
I disagree with your point, John.
When you said that, what popped in my brain was 866-957-2874. I think that's the number.
866-957-2874. Our number now is 888 Crusade.
888 Crusade.
888 Crusade. We're doing live on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
This is and I think that this is where where we triumph over the podcaster.
Yeah.
I go on live every weekday morning at 6 a.m., 5 a.m. your time if you're on the East Coast, right?
Oh, I'm here now.
Oh, it's 7 a.m. on the East Coast. I'm sorry. 7 a.m. I go on live at 7 a.m. every morning, and we stay on for 3 hours. We might stay on for 3.5 if there's something. If I have Johnathan Gilliam on as a guest, and we went 22 minutes, and I went, you know what? Let's just keep on, and we'll finish the interview on YouTube.
That is the great part about it. Yeah.
We can talk. We're going to talk about things that are happening right now.
Yeah.
Or things that happened yesterday or whatever. That is an advantage that you can't have in recorded podcasts.
Yeah.
You can also make arguments over substantive things, and because we have 3 hours to slaughter, as I used to say.
Right.
I walked into the studio, there it was. A carcass of 3 hours of airtime, and it needs killing, and I'm going to kill it. I'm going to slaughter it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I can do 2 segments on something that I'm concerned or passionate about that has an ethical or moral background to it, because I can flesh the argument out.
And that's the thing. What's great about live, especially when you're face-to-face, is that if somebody is spoon-feeding stuff that people want to hear, and then you call them on it, you will see a physical change where you can actually start to get them to shake a little, so you know that they don't believe in what they're saying. And in that part, I love doing that on the radio. Podcasts, it's great. But there's a lot of lessons in etiquette as well. I've had guests on before that was a general one time, and I totally disagreed with everything that he said, and then when he was off, I was like, I disagree with it. I started going in this rant about it, and the producer called in at the break. He said, "Bro, he's never going to come back on this show." I was like, "Yeah, I didn't think about that."
You might have wanted to say that while he was there, so he could defend himself.
That's right. And that's what his point was. So
you're here in Phoenix now, then, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so is this your first TP, your first American Fest?
I've gone to a couple, and I've spoke at some events that Charlie's had, and it's grown. I mean, it's grown. In 3 years. 3 years ago, I went to the first one, and then I went to one in Tampa, and it's just steadily growing. I think what we're seeing though is because Trump was able to do what he did, and I've said this before. I think we're looking at Trump. I think, of course, God has a hand in everybody who becomes a leader, good or bad. But I think that, and the Bible shows that, good or bad, God will have a hand in it. But I really believe that Trump is one of the few anointed leaders that we've seen that is almost biblical, almost to the point of David and Saul, and where when they're anointed, you can't touch them.
He has the potential to be Constantine.
Yeah, but the anointing part is what is incredible, because like David was on the run from Saul, and no matter what they did, they just couldn't get to him. And I see that in this man, and it for me watching it, not from a Trump sycophant point of view, but from a what is God up to here? This is amazing.
Isn't that
because
a point?
Everything they throw at him, he suffers, but he makes it through, and it's done in a way that for you and I, if we went to court and they brought up 34 counts on us and we got convicted, it doesn't matter if they made the charges up. We would go to jail.
I was going to say, they never see us again.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's unbelievable. From him turning his head and getting hit in the ear, I just see God's hand over all of this.
Well, Johnathan, I've been telling people, especially the cynics, nothing's going to change. It's all going to be the same. The politicians are politicians, and the usual suspects, right? Everything is screwed. We're all hoes. Nothing's is actually going to get fixed. My message has been, and I'll repeat it again today for those of you that haven't heard it. My message is pretty simple. On January the 20th, 2025, the highest law enforcement officer in the world is going to be sworn in. He doesn't like people that persecute and try and do bad things to American Christians. Now, our foreign policy does horrible things around the world and allows terrible things to be done to Christians around the world, and that's something that we could talk about at another time. But here in the U.S., Trump is the guy that goes like, what are they doing to the Catholics? What did the Catholics do? This is a guy that's going to defend us.
Yeah.
He's going to protect and defend the First Amendment and the expression of religious freedom, and guard your religious liberty, unlike it's ever been guarded before. If you can't make a difference in a change in the world under that protection, quit. Get out of the game. Quit the game. You have a chance to make a difference now.
And that's where the difference is going to come, is that right now, morals need to become great again.
Yes.
Service needs to be. If you have children and you're a conservative, you're a Christian, you should be talking to them about going to the military. You should be talking to them about serving in the Peace Corps. You should be talking to them about, going to seminary, whatever it is. But conservatives need to be in this. We need to fill the ranks, because in 6 years or in 2 years, if we lose the House, it's going to be a challenge. But in 4 years, we need to have a firm foundation in the citizenry and in all these agencies. And so we need to be pouring in. If you wanted to be, a doctor and you've worked for 3 or 4 years in the medical industry, if you have a degree, apply for the FBI. Go get in there. We need these people in there. And I think this is a true opportunity. I think right now, if they're going to do what they say they're going to do and defund Planned Parenthood, the Catholic Church and all of these churches around the country need to come together and create a true Planned Parenthood, where if somebody gets pregnant, we teach them how to make eggs and breakfast. We support them in how to raise a child. We fund these things.
I agree with that, brother.
And pour the money into that, and
yes.
let's really Planned Parenthood.
Did you ever think that you would hear and you would clap audience out there, did you ever think that you would hear it, you would clap when someone said a true Planned Parenthood?
That's what they should call it, true Planned Parenthood.
A true Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
You know, there's something else that's going on here that, especially at this event, that I think is monumental, and you and I are the only guys that can actually talk about it because we're geezers.
Yeah. With great beards, by the way.
Yeah. These young people need us, Jonathan. Yeah. They need us. What you just said, they need to hear that, and they need to be, look, no, don't do that. Don't do that. I love that you're filled with vinegar and piss and vigor. That's fine. You need to direct it this way because what you're doing there is unethical and immoral. I see the end result you're going for. Yeah. And I've always, my friend Kevin Gutzman, the constitutional scholar historian who wrote the book, The Politically Incorrect Guide to the Constitution, used to say, and I always took this to heart and I never forgot it when he told it to me in 2008, Mike, the problem with conservatives and the Constitution and the courts is that process actually matters. It matters how you got to that decision. Right. The court can get a decision correct and get it correct for the wrong reasons, and a future court will take the wrong reasons and go like, aha, we have an excuse now or we have an end to do bad things. Process matters.
Yes.
And old guys like us know a lot more about the process than our younger counterparts do.
Yep.
And I hope that we can stay active in here, and I'm delighted that you and I can still draw crowds here at a TP USA conference, right?
But they need to realize it's not a popularity game. This is a game of survival.
That's right.
And we right now have the upper hand, but it's as if you're boxing a guy, and then you all of a sudden start saying, I'm the victor, and you let them go back and rest while you're jumping up and down and still sweating, and they go rest there for a while. But if you didn't truly defeat him, as soon as the next round starts, you're going to get pummeled because he's rested and well hydrated. And that is what 4 years of not purging the left and inputting our people in these positions, that's all you're doing. If you don't purge them and fill the ranks, you're just giving them a downtime for 4 years. They're going to come right back and do it because they are a war machine. The conservatives are not. We are new at this.
Yes.
This generation. And I don't think they fully understand the tactics of fighting.
I think Trump did build a war machine. I think the Trump family and the Trump campaign rebuilt the Republican Party for sure. Yeah. And the Democrats never saw that coming.
But we need soldiers, and those soldiers, you can have a great general and a great tactics, and you can have great supplies. But if you don't have soldiers, you don't have military.
Right.
And that's what we need. We need soldiers that are going to get in the fight now.
So we don't need sheep.
No. The bottom part of that is the art of awareness and attack survival, because that's what we're very aware right now, but there's an art to surviving attacks, and a lot of that is forward thinking your enemy and thinking like they do. And if we don't do that now, it's the same argument that people say, well, when they come after my guns, they'll see, well, why wait that long? Why not go and get into law and make sure that the laws stay where they support you? Don't make it your city, because we make it to where we don't want to get up off our couches. We don't want to do these things. We don't want to go out and we want to go rally when Trump shows up. But if Trump's not there, nobody rallies together. We don't go on the street and stay on the street like the left does. So if you wait until 2028 to get into the fight, you're now not controlling the battle.
I'm going to give you a case study in how that actually happened. The Tea Party. The Tea Party had the initiative in 2010 to take the House back by a record, the most amount of seats ever flipped in history in 2010 in response to Obamacare, the Porculus Succubus Stimulus Act, the whole shebang, right? And the Tea Party mailed it in. The Tea Party quit because they won the election. The soldiers did not stay in the fight because Boehner took the gavel, and the left just steamrolled us until Trump.
And owning a business, one thing I definitely have learned is if you employ somebody and they're not doing the job, fire them immediately. And the Republican Party and the conservatives in this country need to realize that you have the power. to get people out of office. You don't have to wait until they vote. If a million people show up and put enough pressure on a politician, they will eventually leave.
Right.
and we just
they don't like
that.
getting calls.
No, they don't like getting calls. They especially don't like people showing up. And listen, I'm not telling people to go out and protest like the left does, but I'm kind of saying go out and protest like the left does. Because if we did what they do and block roads and do these things and shut down D.C., these guys would wake up.
And then we always we're taking the high road here. We're not like them. And sometimes the tactics of the left are actually are good tactics.
Yeah, they're a war machine. And more like I was telling people for the longest time, like in Illinois, I'd say, listen, do what you got to do. Find somebody, dye their hair pink that's true conservative, make up a persona, put it all over social media, let that person run for school board and get to school board.
There you go.
And they're like, we don't stoop to their level. And I said, okay, well, we'll see you in 2 years, and you're going to be in the same position you're in. You got to learn to fight smart. And if you think that you're above fighting, then you're going to be enslaved.
Let me talk to you about your expertise, Navy SEAL, FBI. The FBI was founded in 1908 basically to investigate people in the federal government that were committing crimes of corruption, right? And then it turned into the greatest law enforcement agency in the land. I think that it lost its mission. And I think that there's enough crime going on inside the federal government to keep every FBI officer busy for the rest of their lives. Where did the FBI? Is there a year? Was there a director? Where did it kind of like lose its way? And I think it has lost its way to the point where people are like, and this is not a minority position anymore. Are saying like, what do we need it for?
Yeah. Well, we do need it.
You're an agent.
Yeah.
You're an agent.
We do need the FBI. We don't need the current FBI that we have in the way that it's ran. And, Hoover, there's a lot of terrible things that people say about him, but I think Hoover was the first person to be, from law enforcement or in politics in modern era, to be vilified long-term through the court of public opinion. Really effective. That's when TV came along and everything. But you look at who he was targeting. Look at the groups that he targeted. Communists, the
mobs,
black separatists,
right.
the gay activists. I'm not saying there's not a racist bone in my body, and anybody can live where they want. But the activists were the ones who were causing the most problems at that point. Now, you fast forward all these years, he kind of had it right, because the same people that took over the Democrat Party, that have destroyed all these industries around the world and have tried to institute things into our schools that are grooming children to be confused. That all comes from the exact people he was looking at. And so the FBI itself was the one that spread a tremendous amount of information bad about Hoover in an apologetic kind of way. And it got worse and worse, to the point where I think it was 2008 or 2010 when we got a new dialogue. That's our investigative Bible. All our policies for the FBI are in there, and it was an 18-hour training. They rewrote it, and they changed under Mueller. The FBI went from the premier law enforcement to the premier intelligence agency. And they even said that, domestic intelligence agency. And we did not understand that, because first of all, when we do a case and we send intelligence up, the intelligence comes right back down to us. So we're like, okay, nobody's feeding us new intelligence, so who's getting our intelligence and what are they doing with it?
Right.
And so we were very curious about that, and I think we see where it went. I think it made Washington, D.C. more and more powerful. The deputy directors, the director, it made them very powerful and left. Because when Trump was in office, as we see, thanks to Chris Christie and his incredible pick of Christopher Wray, because that's who convinced Trump to pick Christopher Wray.
Was Christie.
It? Oh. And there's not many mistakes I can say, but listen, I don't. If Trump makes a mistake, because I respect him as a leader, I will say that was a mistake, and that was a mistake, right?
Big one.
But under Christopher Wray, these people really were planted during Trump. They planted themselves during Mueller, but under Christopher Wray, they just fortified under him, and to the point where they paid Peter Strzok McCabe and Lisa Page, they just paid them back, or they gave them a settlement because they said that they mishandled their private texts or something like that, to the tune of like $1.3 million.
Right, I know that.
That's the craziest thing, because when you're in the Bureau, everything belongs to the Bureau. Your text messages, your financial records, everything. And the fact that they got paid back shows you that mafia is in control. And so now, as Trump comes into office, with Kash Patel, again, I'm not a sycophant for anybody. Kash Patel has a lot of good insight, but the problem where we're going to run into the issues is that I'm not sure if he knows these mafias, and there's many. And mafias. There's
inside the FBI.
Inside every agency. There's, there could be the women's mafia, right? If a female that's an activist gets a position of authority, she's going to stack the ranks with people that are like her.
Makes sense.
The gay mafia. You have the leftist. You have SWAT team. SWAT team, they get one of their guys in a position of authority or executive position in the Bureau, they're going to stack their ranks with other SWAT guys who may be terrible leaders, but they're their buddies, right? So these mafias do not work effectively, and usually it's agenda-oriented or buddy and crony-oriented. And we need to get rid of that. You need to be find rank by your effectiveness, by your peer evaluation. We don't have peer evaluations. They need that. And then the military is the same way, because the military is a great example. When you reach 06, right, as an officer, which in the Navy would be a captain, you climb to that level, and then from that point forward, you're pulled up. Right, you don't become an admiral.
You climb the ladder, and then
they go like this. They say, "Okay, throw the rope to that guy," and then they pull that guy up. And so they only pull the people up that meet with their ideology or will scratch their back or whatever.
They do that in media too, Jonathan.
Say again?
They do that in media too.
Oh yeah, media.
You make the rank of captain. I made captain. I never made it to lieutenant.
Listen, I only got to let's see. I was a lieutenant in the Navy, which is 03, right?
Okay.
Army. Or in the Navy, a captain is 06, right? So
what's an 07?
An 07 is admiral. Or a general.
I never made it to admiral.
Yeah, you have your own show, so you made it to captain, right?
I said they let me become a captain. I worked my way to captain, but I never made admiral.
But see, I didn't even get there. So I've been a fill-in host on every show. I've been on every show on Fox, on Newsmax. I was even a CNN contributor years ago. And I've never been given a show. Now, I don't know if that's because I suck or if it's because I just don't meet their idea of either what they think should be out there, or I don't meet their ideology. And so I never made it. I made it to that door, but never went through that door. So that is in retrospect, though, it's allowed me to see a lot of things and say, sometimes people make it, and they get in there and they have a great show, and then a lot of the times people that get up to these points, it's because they were pulled up.
I'm convinced that most of them were pulled up. I'm going to give you one example of your mafia example. You probably know this. You might have even been at the Bureau at the same time. And this is in the first month of the Obama regime. What they did to Rod Blagojevich. What's his name? Patrick Fitzsimmons. What Patrick Fitzsimmons did using the Bureau to get Rod Blagojevich was just disgraceful. And I thank the Lord for Mrs. Blagojevich writing to President Trump and saying, will you please read the file? I'm only asking you, Mr. President, to read the file.
Yeah.
And he read the file and was moved to tears because this guy's still in the pen.
Right.
And pardoned him that day to get him out of jail. That's, there was I'm not sure which mafia did that, but they did that and that's not me pandering for Rod Blagojevich in any way, shape, or form. But Obama set him up, and they took him out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at General Flynn, you look at Trump, Trump is a perfect example of this. How, these mafias get in there. Like the D.C. field office is, that is a mob in and of itself, right? So while Trump was in, there was a certain core group of people that worked there, and anything that was Trump-related, they investigated, right? So it doesn't matter where it happened in the world. They were the crew that was like something out of a movie, like how in the movies the same guys go to war every single time. That's Rob O'Neill. Not everybody gets to do like Rob O'Neill did, but in the Bureau, it's not typically like that, right? So this crew, which was also a lot of people from the Russian Foreign Counterintelligence were on that crew, and it didn't matter if Joe Biden had any classified stuff at his house. He wasn't a declassifier. Trump was the declassifier, and the stuff that he had at his place, which is a SCIF, by the way.
Right.
Biden's home is not. Trump's house is a SCIF. They showed up with lights blaring, with DOJ attorneys, which makes no sense. I've never been on a search where I had attorneys there with me to do it, and they had all the media was already there and all these things. So that is a perfect example of what happened to Rob Blagojevich. I don't know how that word flows off my
Blagojevich.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But what happens is once they lock onto you, somebody within that chain of command is ideologically connected to somebody in politics that wants this guy removed.
Right.
And they will pour stuff on them, and they either have people in their ranks that agree with them or people that are scared to say no.
And they got him. All right, final question and final topic of discussion for Johnathan Gilliam. Beautiful Navy SEAL pin here. I told you that I have 3 of them given to me by SEALs. You were kind of impressed by that.
Yeah.
SEALs don't give their pins up easily here.
Yeah.
I love the clip from A Few Good Men where Jack Nicholson says, we use words like honor, code, loyalty.
Right.
We use them as a backbone spent defending for something. You use them as a punchline at a party.
That's pretty good.
Those words mean something. That pin means something to the men that wear it.
Yeah. And you know
what's it like? What was it? What was it like being at the pinnacle of military excellence and responsibility?
Yeah.
Right, because you could be sent on a mission with a shoot to kill order to take a human life. This is an enormous responsibility.
Yeah.
What's that like bearing that?
Well,
and afterwards, is it hard to bear it afterwards?
Well, I'll start with afterwards first, because what it did for me was it made me. So I left there and I was an air marshal.
Okay.
And then when I went from there to contracting and then in the FBI, so it made all those jobs easier for me. When I was an air marshal, it goes 0 to 1,000. There's no in between, right? Somebody gets up and they try to take over the plane. It's your job to eliminate that threat. And so I knew my skill set. And I knew that intrinsically that there would be no thought process that my training would be I would be using my training to eliminate that threat without any type of weighing the decision, right? Because my training as a SEAL was so embedded in me, and they while everybody is quitting because it's cold, they're also peeling your soul open and letting you see who you really are. Now, with that is a very scary thing, because when you look at yourself, you're going to see that there's a tremendous amount of things that you don't like about yourself, or are you too weak? And that's a hard thing to admit. So a lot of people will just say, no, I'm not weak, but they'll quit.
Right.
So those who stay in are people that they look at themselves and they say, I am a weak human being, but I am going to overcome that weakness. And so when you take that and then you go outside of the SEAL teams and you do these other things, they always say, once you live in New York, there's nothing you can't do. Well, once you've been a SEAL, there's really nothing you can't do. The only problem is you got to really work hard at not making people angry, because you tell people exactly how it's supposed to be. So I think it really helped me become a better person. When I went into the SEAL teams, I was reading the book of Job. I was deep in the study of the book of Job.
Chesterton's favorite book.
Yep.
G.K. Chesterton loved the book of Job.
What it showed me was that I grew up very poor, but I'd never given up anything, right? I grew up with nothing, but once you get it, it's very difficult to give it up. And I think as a SEAL, I made a commitment. God called me to that, and I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to give up everything, because you do give up everything when you go in there. And I had my faith, and then I had my decision to drive forward or not. And God let them peel my soul open and me look inside, and I said, you know what, I am worthy. I can do this, and as long as God, when I'm the weakest, can pick my leg up, I will put it back down. And that's how I kept going.
Have you seen the TV show SEAL Team, David Boreanaz?
I can't watch those shows.
I think they do a pretty good job of getting inside the soul part.
Yeah.
Because those guys get active PTSD
Yeah.
while they're doing the job. I would tell you one final thing about my experience with one of the gentlemen that gave me the Trident. He came to visit me in New Orleans. He stayed. He was there 2 or 3 days. We had a lunch and a dinner together. He came by the studio. He sat in, listened to a show because he didn't want to reveal himself. So he just sat there and listened. And he told me when we were talking, I said, "Tell me what it was like." And he goes, "I can't tell you any mission stuff, Mike. I won't."
Yeah.
He said, "But I can tell you." And I said, "Well, basically asking, what are your capabilities?" He told me something that changed the way I look at you guys. And number one, out of an immense amount of respect and just a wee bit of fair.
Yeah.
He said, we're sitting at a table having lunch. He looks at me and he says, "I'll put it to you this way. In 15 seconds, I forget how many seconds, he goes, in 15 seconds, you'll be dead and there's nothing you can do about it, and I'm going to kill you." And I went, and he looked at me and he went, "That's what I can do." And I went, "Okay, next question."
Yeah, the other thing is that separates him from most is that I know that if that needed to be done, I can count on him to do it.
He would do it.
And that's the big thing. I've been around guys before, and literally when I was an air marshal, I had a guy tell me, he's like, I was a cop and I had to shoot somebody when I was a cop. He goes, "I don't know if I could do that again." I was like, "Well, why are you on this job? Why are you on this job? This is an emotional, it's not, take the emotion out of it." When I do analysis on television about stuff that's happening, people often will say, weak people will write and say, "You're a cold-hearted person, insensitive." It's not that I'm cold-hearted. I have the ability to remove the emotion and look at what needs to be done or analyze what has happened and say, well, this is why it happened. And the SEAL teams teaches you that because you cannot – the SEAL teams are like the fire department. You can't go into a fire thinking – well, I don't want to get burned. I mean, that's not what you're going to think, Or they say, "We need you to put out the fire," and say, "Okay, I'm going to do my best." You go in there, and I was a volunteer firefighter for a little while, and it's the scariest thing ever. I mean, it's claustrophobic, and I never want to burn to death. But as a SEAL, I have no problem getting in a firefight. But we know that we are going to do it. What's our task? Then we are going to accomplish that task. And we are professionals at what we do. And it just so happens that it has to do with, sometimes it's not killing. It could be blowing something up or reconnaissance, but we are effective at what we do. And it's a professional thing. And so when he says that to you, it's the fact that he could do that, but the fact is that he would do it if needed. And it wouldn't be I got to wrestle with this decision a little bit.
Oh, no, there was no wrestling. No. And that's what I say. It changed my view that, okay, hey, man, again, I would never ask you again now.
Right.
I didn't want to put you in a position where you have to contemplate.
Now, the FBI agent me then comes out and says, and you have to know how to articulate why you did it. So now, having had all this training, I know I'm committed to it, and that if I needed to do it, and I know how to articulate why I did it if it happened.
He is Johnathan Gilliam. Johnathan, are you here? Are you speaking?
I'm not speaking now.
Okay, but
I never get asked to speak at these things. I don't know what.
Tell me a little bit about the exhibit.
The Wall of Honor.
The Wall of Honor.
Yeah.
The trucks were out here on Wednesday night when I got here. They were already offloading here. Tremendous display of all the crests of all the armed forces. Yeah. Just what exactly? So this is a tour. This thing could go anywhere to any convention.
They said they're going to do 50 states or 50 cities in 50 days. I'm not exactly sure, but it's so the artist did an amazing job with the thing weighs. It's not flimsy. That thing is like real steel, and he handcrafted all of the emblems and all the things that you see on there, all handcrafted by him. And it's basically. It's not like the traveling Vietnam Memorial Wall. It's in the same fashion. There's nobody's names on that, but it represents all the branches, including law enforcement and the president, and it's going to travel the country, and hopefully people will come out and see it because it's kind of awe-inspiring. It looks like
it's amazing.
Yeah, it looks like something out of that movie 2000. Was it 2001? What was that movie with the Space Odyssey? What was that?
It's 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah, 2001. That's come and gone. But yeah. So yeah, it's a huge thing, and the guy did an amazing job on that.
Well, if you ever need a job filling in for a radio guy, I know someone.
You got it.
Folks, he is Johnathan Gilliam. The book is Sheep No More. You can find it at Amazon and great booksellers everywhere.
Oh, by the way, we're in Arizona, but I just feel like I'm in Florida right now.
Louisiana.
Oh, Louisiana, that's even better.
That's my home.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
People said, where did you get the backdrop? I said, I walked out the back door. Not true, close, but not exactly precise. Been great talking to you,
my
man.
Pleasure, yeah.
Thank you.
And it's great to finally meet you and meet the man behind the myth. And it was, I mean, listen, you were revered there at Sirius when I was there. They loved you, but they spoke of you differently than other people. There was a fire about your show, and so I didn't step up to that plate lightly. It was terrifying because I knew that you had dedicated callers that were up early, and I knew that it was going to be a long show. So you definitely.
We're still on every morning, so you can tune in at any time. Folks, I'm going to send you back to the studio here. I want to thank Johnathan for stopping by. Get the book, Sheep No More, and we'll be right back here with more great live interviews here. Mike Church, live here. If you like what you just saw, and you're going like, well, that 50 minutes just flew by.
Yeah.
It's talk radio, baby. That's live. That's the power of live. You can do that. Tap that subscribe button right down there, and next time I go live and do this, you'll be notified, and then you'll be in on it. Thanks for watching. We'll send you back to the studio here, live from America Fest. I am Mike Church, the KingDude, on the Crusade Radio Network Live Talk Campaign, Convention Radio and TV, the way it should be.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
You had a picture?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you have studio